I'm Tatiana Doncaster, the Finance Director for British Rowing, and for the next 10 minutes or so, we'll be talking about transformation, but in slightly less technical terms. So, interestingly enough, transformation for me, or anything that I deal with within finance, is normally aligned to simple terms, the things that I can personally relate to. As a great Disney fan, Snow White lends herself perfectly with the way that she has gone through her journey and transformed her environment. I think Mary Poppins is also great, but this is less copyright because it's 1937. So our favorite Disney movies, I think things we can relate to, and actually thinking about it, you know, in our family, it's probably about 3 years after release when you were able to appreciate some. So mine is Winnie the Pooh, my kids are The Little Mermaid and Aladdin, which is what they really love. But how do we align something to do with Snow White to transformation in general? So, story of Snow White. Who can introduce me to it? Anybody familiar with either the Grimm's fairy tale or the Disney one? Any fans of Snow White? Shall I start you off? So basically, this young lady was an evil stepmother who is, trodden upon, becomes a scullery maid, in the end gets exiled to the forest and befriends some dwarfs. So, why do we feel, so what is in her journey is so transformational and we can relate to? This young lady turns up in the middle of nowhere after a very treacherous journey in the forest where she's completely petrified, befriends some people on her way who she initially is not particularly relating to. In fact, she's scared of them. She thinks they're out there to lurk and do something and, petrify her. So potentially this is the environment we're coming into, where we're coming into transformation. It's an entirely unknown world. We're not really sure what to expect. If we're in a new company, we're potentially, as much as we try to be open and positive, we're potentially thinking that there are some dangers lurking behind us and people are out to get us, or this environment is really scary, oh my God, how am I going to complete it? So, some of us are lucky and work for enormous companies. My career over 25 years has been in small businesses or charities, and we don't have the resource to have the amazing transformation, beautiful systems to introduce, and huge budgets to come in and plow into our finance systems. So what do? You use existing skills, existing tools. So Snow White turns up. Stuff in this house, yes, they've got brooms, yes, they've got washing up tools, yes, they've got everything else. Do they use it? No, they don't really. Dusts it off, off she goes. Clears out the place, does it with assistance of people, but ultimately, she's probably, in this instance, hasn't got the budget to go off to the nearest Walmart or whatever it is and purchase something to assist her. Got to use what they've got. Cloth, whatever it is she was using all around there, sweeping, anything else she's got. What happened to her when she was downgraded from being a princess to being somebody who her evil stepmother didn't like? She became a scullery maid. So in essence, it's a skill that was gained by her. She really didn't want to be. This is a princess here, Instead, okay, she embraces her circumstance, she's got a skill, she can relate to it. If she turned up to that house with the dwarfs without any skills whatsoever, could she have done what she's done? Probably not. So ultimately, in that case, what we think about is sometimes the skills come to us in the most unexpected places. So in her case, that really wasn't her agenda when she was born. She was born in the life of luxury. Gosh, this happened. She became a scullery maid. But she used her circumstance and she used her skills and her environment to create something that then helped her transform some other things around in her life. If she didn't have that, that wouldn't have been possible. So, turns up, starts cleaning. What does she do? So cleaning out, so they've got an instrument to play, she's doing the laundry, she's doing the cleaning, so an extreme diverse range of tasks. You could be faced with anything within your environment. It might not just be financial. In my current company, I have done office refurbishment for about a year because it needed it, and I now know types of masonry paint, which is what I really didn't set out to do. It was required. Sometimes you lean into what a company requires from you under that given circumstances, so you could give the most value. But notice that really irked me every time. She cleaned downstairs in the dwarf's cottage. Did she go up and clean the bedroom? No, she didn't. Then went to sleep across those beds, which again, me as somebody who's quite house proud, that irked me a little bit. I'm like, oh my God. But she only had the day to transform. She did the cooking, she did the cleaning, she did the laundry. That was her limitation. Be careful about spreading yourself too thinly, because it's really easy to say, crikey, there's a massive task. I really want to do everything. Everything needs to be transforming. Do it step by step. Do it for your limitation. Do it for your ability. Do it for what you personally can embrace. Otherwise, you will run yourself into the ground, you will spread yourself too thinly, and you really will not get there because it's just too difficult. Sometimes transformations projects are a marathon, as Tim was saying, and it takes a long time. Take credit when it's due. Be happy when it's done, but give yourself some limitations. Set out the task. Don't rush. Don't do something which is beyond you, which you think you are not going to be able to do. So, does she leave the people within the cottage or her environment to run on themselves? Who remembers the scene with the washing up? Come on, one of you has seen Snow White. Don't pretend you haven't seen it, please. It was long ago, but you know, I had to rewatch it as a part of research, so you have to run with me, okay? I really enjoyed it. My kids have got Disney Channel. So, what happens? The animals start washing up. They use their tongue to clean it, use their tails to wipe the dishes. What does she do? Stand aside and say, well done, guys. Yes, she is very encouraging. Great, you're doing that. Wonderful. You know, continue with that. That's marvelous. But no. Use the tub. So off they go and do it the recommended way. So as much as you're allowing a freedom of expression, you have to be on hand to support either your finance team or your operational team or your company or your board. You can't just let it slide and go, oh, okay, let's just do it the way it's been done. Or let's just do it that's expected. Or let's just do it because it's easier for them. You know, just does it in a way that should be done, which is us as accountants. We stick to finance principles. We stick to the way that we are bound by our code of governance. We stick by the way that it should be done. However, we do allow freedom of expression. Right now, you're going to have to participate. Who can name the 7 dwarfs? Come on. Sleepy. Excellent. Brilliant. Grumpy. Dog. Anybody else? Wonderful. Bashful, yes. Sneezy. Happy. Lovely. Right, so, do we know that Walt Disney was the first person who gave personalities to the dwarfs? They were not in mass, they were individuals. And there were all sorts of things. There were Flick, Glick, all sorts of things. One was supposed to be Snoopy, hence where the name was borrowed, but then they all assumed different personalities. And incidentally, when the Oscar was given, there was a large Oscar for Snow White and 7 little ones for the dwarfs, so I thought that was really cute. Right. So, what happens to Snow White in the woods? Anybody remembers? She's petrified, there's all sorts of lights and flickering, she's running around, you know, collapses on the floor. Incidentally, Disney's target audience of 5-year-olds, the seats that were sat on had to be changed because they didn't make it to the loo. Excuse me, they were so scared of that scene in the woods. what does Snow White think when she sees the small outfits, small beds in a cottage? Who does she think lives there? Does she think they're grown men? Does she suggest dwarfs? What's her perception?
Children.
Thank you. She thinks they're kids. Her understanding, her expectation of how she has to relate to them is one way before they come through the door. And it's like, whoopsie daisy, they're grown men. These are not just grown men, they're gemologists. These people are wealthy, they understand, the industry, they mine gold and jewels. For that, do they really need somebody turning up and cleaning their cottage? Possibly, maybe, but that's not on the list of their priorities. They don't need some girl rolling up thinking they're kids and treating them like kids. These are grown-ups, these are adults, So, personality types of dwarfs who turn up, the ones we've encountered. Okay, these are just 7 people that you might potentially see on your transformation journey. This is 7. How many people are in your team? How many people are in an organization you're transforming? 100? 500? How many of them know things and are very competent? Somebody who doesn't take you on, they're just going to say, bugger off, I'm not interested, you're talking a load of rubbish, I'm not going to embrace it. Somebody who's jolly and happy, oh great, new challenge, it's really good, we've not had it before, let's have a roll with it. Somebody who's just uninterested, it's fine, I've been here for a while, it's not anything that interesting that you can introduce to me. Somebody who's got some underlying health condition, so allergies or things like this or whatever it is, that potentially they can't make it to the office, they're too poorly to make it, and you have to sort of make allowances for that productivity and everything else. Somebody who's too shy to speak, they're unable to express themselves, and somebody who is potentially got a disability, so somebody who can't talk. How are you going to deal with that? Disney had shown us they're not in mass. They're all different things. They're all different entities. They're not just one person. And therefore, when you're coming in for your transformation, you can't have a one-fits-all approach. You need to know who are they, what makes them tick, how can you relate to them, how can they understand you, how can they embrace you, and how can they go with you? Because unless you endear yourself to your community, you will not move forward. You can come in, you can shove your legalese, you can do all sorts of information. We're all competent people. But how do you endear people so they transform with you? You can't do things to them. Nobody appreciates that. So, individual approach. What does she do? I was particularly loving that. She made pies for all of them and written their names on them. The girl was a cookery genius. I don't know how you can put a name in dough on a pie. That's beyond me, Dopey needed a bit of support, kissed him on the head, the scene where they were running in and out. Somebody needs a more personal approach. Somebody needs for them to, to be embraced and understood. Somebody needs that competence. Somebody needs, it depends. But it's up to you as an individual to be alert and understand what people's needs are, because not one approach fits all. So, what can help us along our journey? Do we remember the scene where she forced them to wash their faces? Yeah? What happened? So, what's her motivation? She made them some hot food. Yeah? Maybe it doesn't look like a cook has been used for a while, or whatever she's using the cauldron. Don't have time, guys are working full time. Hot meals are not on the thing. I don't know if they got meals on wheels in that woods of theirs, but it's probably likely that they're having dry food and whatever's grown in their cottage garden or something, or collect berries, I don't know, dry mushrooms. So, soup, what does she do? She encourages them. She says, you can't sit to the table unless you wash your hands, because you've produced something that would motivate them. It's quite nice to get a hot bowl of soup after a hard day. What do? Okay, let's embrace it. Some happily, some reluctantly. What happens to Grumpy? Gets dumped into the pail of water by his peers, because they've all cleaned themselves. They noticed he hasn't done, and at that point they've embraced it so much, they were willing to peer pressure somebody else and say, come on, you're embracing that, you are doing that. What else helped her? Why were they willing to support her? Her reputation. She was a princess. They instantly recognized that. She said, I'm Snow White. They said, oh, you're a princess. We know of you. Your reputation over the years of what you carry within transformation would pave your way as well. So if you're known within the industry, we're a very small environment. A lot of people know each other. We all go to conferences and chat on LinkedIn and do things, you know. Remember, that's how you're viewed in your public profile, in the way that you're presenting yourself, in the things that you do, because people might have heard of you as well. And if you're turning up to a company with a good reputation, that will help you along the way. So, most important of all, have fun. Don't make it a project which gives you a headache and you really hate and you don't want to do, and it wakes you up at night and you think, oh my God, why did I get involved in it? There will be parts to it, but if you yourself are not enjoying it, nobody around you will, and it will become a drag, it will be boring, it will be something people will not subscribe to, and in the end, it's possible to fail, or it's a lot easier to fail. Have a joyful time. Enjoy it. Find your own Disney character and assign to them. If it's not that, find Transformers, or I don't know what films you like. And that association, that's something else that maybe brings up an inner child, or makes you happy, or makes you content, will maybe help your way to transformation. Okay? Any questions?
So we've got a wandering mic, the lady here.
Tatiana, a lot of what you said really resonates with me, the sort of roll up your sleeves, get involved with things that are sort of outside your traditional sort of finance director type role. And I completely agree with your approach about treating people as individuals. But how do you go about doing that when you've got, say, you know, remote working? Perhaps you've had people who've been onboarded during the pandemic, so it's difficult to get to know them. What advice would you offer? And I think the other point I'd add and welcome your advice on is it can be very draining to be constantly putting yourself out there. So how do you keep that fun and keep that joy?
I think it depends. I think with transformation and lockdown, this is a new topic for all of us. How do we manage? I can tell you how we manage at British Rowing, and that seems to work. Firstly, we have an online journal which goes out once a week, and we have our CEO who has a piece every week who talks about things within the company, but the directors, so the other 4 directors, have a piece every week. So in mine, I am really careful about not bamboozling people. So I take a topic, for example, I take what is a P60, what is your pension, what's a P45, how do you manage, I don't know, what is accruals, what is prepayments, and I talk about it, not in a language which is patronizing, but in a language which people can understand. I break it down. I joke about it. There's things, my next one will have a TikTok of me running down the hills to the sound of music. You see the Disney theme emerging because the audit is over. So I have promised people I will do that. You know, it's something, ultimately cater to your person. We've done some seminars to our rowing communities which have been called demystifying finance. So talking to them about general concepts, what can we understand, what can we do? And yes, it is online, and yes, it is not as personal, but that helps for us. And having, okay, it is draining, but having meetings. So our finance team has a hangout every day. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's half an hour tops. Sometimes we talk about things within the office, sometimes it's whatever the audit's been going through, some things, whatever it is. Sometimes we talk about films, sometimes we talk about movies, sometimes we talk about, I don't know, songs we like, what's on the charts, something along those lines. Make it, go with the conversation that people want to have. And it's a similar way where we meet with all the budget holders, it's the same conversation. We are respected for our knowledge, but they think we're a bit of fun, and I think I'll run with it because people embrace us. And over the past, well, my financial controller is here and she's been here 2 years, mine is 1.5 years, we see transformation and the stakeholders are noticing that, and that's been in lockdown. Does that help? Anyone else?
Thank you, Tatiana. I've done a few transformation projects, and I feel there's always a point where you kind of got your head in your hands going, Christ, it's really not working. And what do you do when you're in that moment? Because, transformation is risk.
You have to be on point. Yes, it is risk. If you are, in this instance, a transformation leader, you almost can't afford to be. But two things. I think it's okay to let people see your weakness and say, crikey, that's getting a bit much. But maybe share it with somebody you trust. So if you have your good relationship with the CEO, talk to them about it. Or somebody who you trust within the company or something like that. But ultimately, then do something which charges you back up. If you want to dance away the night to, I don't know, some 80s pop music, this is my thing, do it. You need to charge up. We all need to charge our batteries. And I think particularly in lockdown, that is so important. Do something that makes you happy. I eat and cook Thai food. That makes me happy. Off I go and do that. What is your thing? What makes you happy? What makes you charge? Because you will come to that point where you think, crikey, I've had enough, I'm walking. Anyone else?
If we can try and get a question here, then there, so that we can get to it.
I really love your personality. Sorry, I just have to say that out loud. How do you influence other members within the senior leadership team to be as awesome as you are and embrace the change that
I think we're very lucky within members of our senior leadership team that they are sort of, in some respects, as quirky, but it's probably taken my sense of fun to make them even more fun than they have been before I've joined. I've arrived and I said I'm the Mary Poppins of finance because I come in, I transform, and I move on when the wind changes. Again, it's the same thing. You've got to have your wins. So people in our senior leadership team, there's 6 of us overall. If we're not friends and are not aligned and are not working well together, we can't then spread it out further. So we've now gone this first step where we've aligned ourselves as this team. We're now having conversation with the heads of teams, which is a much broader group. So there's about 20 people, whereby we're spreading the idea further out. And because finance and other teams have been doing communication about how to transform, how to do things. People embrace ideas, but it's important to hear everybody and make them feel like an individual. Because if you start bamboozling them, you've lost them. And it's very easy to do so.
One remark. I think there's a lot of preconceptions about finance personality.
Yes.
But do you know what? Accountants are fun. We are fun, aren't we?
Yeah, what was that meme going around? I do what accountants do. My kids showed me. I'm an accountant, I'm doing this, and they're pole dancing. Oh, you never know.
There is also a free bar at the end of this as well, so you can...
I shall not be demonstrating pole dancing, My older daughter does it, incidentally, as exercise, but there we go. Right, enough of personal disclosure. Anyone else?
Hi, thank you for the lovely presentation, especially like the storytelling. I don't have, in my company, I don't have 7 drafts to help me out. So sometimes I'm the person putting the decisions into the things and cleaning stuff and all. And I have limited resources always, and there are always fires to put out and processes. So often it results in, okay, who's going to solve this problem? Give it to him because he's done it several times. So how do I manage that? Because often I'm the go-to person for many things, even outside my ambit, because I do tend to solve things and put them back on track sometimes. Sometimes I break things, sometimes I repair them. So how do I manage that when you have limited people to help you out, and often there's pressure from the CEO giving you a call every day. Oh, have you sorted that out? Well, I've sorted that out, but not that. Okay, I'll jump on that.
I think first question, do you enjoy that?
Yes,
or does it drive you mad? You enjoy
it does,
it.
but
Okay,
sometimes
that's the
it
first
gets
step
overwhelming.
towards it. You enjoy it. Ultimately, there are people within the company who you can endear to be your help. So I will give you an example. My risk register when I came in was an entire load of mess. I am not as strong on Excel as I could be. The youngsters baffle me when they go off and do all sorts of things, and it sings and dances. I'm, oh my God, what did you do? So we have a head of our youth rowing who we heard was good on Excel. well. So I turned around and said, you know, we need this risk register improving. Do you want to have a crack? He embraced it. He said, you know what? I'm really enjoying it. I checked in a few times and said, do you feel put upon? Have we just dumped this project on you and you're just doing that? He said, you know what? It makes such a change from the things that I do on a regular basis. I'm actually having fun here. So if you hear of somebody within a broader network, why not share with them? It gives them an extra skill and in effect sell it as an extra skill. Say, you know what? If you do that, you can put that on your CV. You can, you know, you can embrace, you can develop. This is some other area. Also, embrace your network. You know, we're all on LinkedIn. People approach me sometimes and chat to me and everything else. I'm very happy to help, and I reach out to my NGB sports network and say, crikey, guys, I've got a problem. What do I do with it? People are supportive. Generally, I think, particularly post-pandemic, I think we're really, really happy and glad to assist somebody else who is near us. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sending you a LinkedIn request after this.
Of course.
Go on. Go on.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. So my question is, this all sounds lovely and Snow White is dancing and having fun, but what happens when the dwarfs are not on side, when there's complacency and they actually don't want to change?
They will never want to change to start with. You know, ultimately, is Snow White dancing through her tears? Possible. You know what, you have to some extent, present a front. You have to be, if you're the champion of transformation, you have to be cheerful about it because people follow you and do it. Ultimately, there are boundaries that you set in the beginning where you say, you know, people probably will not abide. People know that as an accountant, I've got integrity and I will not go beyond the point. And ultimately, I don't like being stern and serious or pulling rank or saying something like that. But if a boundary is breached, it can't be breached because it's getting pulled back into there. You have to ultimately set up some of the projects of transformation around you and maybe be a part of other teams. So as much as, you know, I'm the finance director, I sit on the senior leadership team, I sit on some of our championship teams, I sit on some of the sort of, you know, and I relate closely to human resources or IT or other departments. People have to know about you. I know you can't spread yourself too thinly. You have to almost endear the whole group because out of that group of all the dwarfs with different personalities, there will be somebody who is happy within the company, maybe not in your finance team, but somewhere else. And once you've got one person supporting you, you can relate to them how I'm relating to you here. You try and pick out a person who is nodding along to you and going, yes, Tatiana, you're doing great. You know, once you've got somebody who embraces you, there might be 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 people, but once you've got a group around you, it's so much easier. Don't be a standalone. Try and find a group of like-minded individuals. Maybe they're not within finance, maybe somewhere else, and that will aid you on your journey. Pleasure.
Great. Well, thank you very much.